Now we have the pros for the videos, the traditional blog, Scrollytelling, and now we can actually go hard and just make a list. So the pros for video is that it is probably the most passive consumption vehicle listed, and that is because it is delivered on an audio video silver platter. It has the most. This is a pro and a con. It has the most data of all of the final output types, because it has visual, auditory, and even text, which is optional. But that's also a con for it, right? Like, so let me go down here and build up those pros and cons at the same time, minimize these so we don't have to look at them. Ooh. Why do those look the same size even though they're different? No wonder. You don't say. Okay, whatever. Yeah, so this is also a con though, right? Like this most data, because you have to transcode and do all this stuff. I think that videos, a big con for me is that videos require takes. I'm not a huge fan of takes, and takes are super repetitive. I also think it requires the most editing. That might not be the case. I think for some people who are like goated video editors, they can code, they can edit videos really quickly. I'm not one of those people. Yeah, so I mean, there's cons probably to get started. So yes, the most passive consumption, it takes the most data. I was saying there's like a ton of competition in all verticals, from 15 seconds on like TikTok all the way up to feature length movies. Yeah, people are just uploading video all the time. I think that YouTube recently has done something where they're like squashing views or something. It feels like when I went on YouTube recently, I was kind of surprised at how many views videos were getting where I thought that they would get just like a ton of views, and then they're getting very few views. So I'm thinking that either they changed the algorithm to get rid of a lot of bots or something, because like usually like, there would be some, and maybe it's just the verticals that I'm in, but I feel like, you know, some videos would get like 30 million views in a day, and now I saw a video today that was number 5 on trending, and it had like 1.5 million views. So maybe they've changed their algorithm in that sense, but I don't know. I don't really follow. So video is the most passive. It has the most data. What else is a pro about video? Hmm. I guess it conveys the most personality. This can also be read as a con. Yeah, I don't know. I pretty firmly believe this. I think, especially in the video editing, or not video, the vlog kind of world that we live in, we see a lot of people who are vlogging and they are just kind of not that exciting when you watch them day in and day out, you know. And some people are super exciting. Like, some people have really found the spice of life through their video editing efforts, but other people will just kind of, like, you know, be regular people. Like, there's no fault in going to the same coffee shop every day and showing your life video editing, or talking about a problem that you were facing, kind of like a video journal, a video diary that you just share with the rest of the world. But that's kind of become the default, right? Like, the skill floor of vlogging has dropped a ton, and now there's a lot of repetition in the space, which is actually kind of a benefit, actually. So there's a lot of repetition in the space. So new ideas stand out. I would say, yeah, so little customizability. In the way of code and interactivity. I mean, you know, one of the reasons that I wanted to try customizability, one of the reasons that I chose to start streaming, actually, as a method of video editing, video recording, was that there is more of an interactive element in the process of creating content. It's even from a code perspective. Like, there's a YouTuber who I watch a lot called Doug, and he does a great job of making very interactive stuff with his content. So I think that this is offset by streaming. For example, Doug. And I think I can link Doug's channel. Doug. So what do we got here? We have the most passive consumption vehicle of the ones listed, because it's delivered on an audio video silver platter. There's the most data of all of the final types, which allows you to pack a lot in. Conveys the most personality. This can also be a con if you don't like a person's personality, or the development of parasocial relationships.
What is...
I'm gonna copy this. You're gonna yeet this in here. I think I wanted to do, there's like another plugin. This has become my favorite part of the stream, is just finding plugins. Paste URL into selection. Install. Enable. I'm going to jump into the options of auto link title. Yeah, and get rid of that. So let's change this to parasocial relationships. I think that probably video pays the most. At least as a B2C model. I'll get into what I mean by that. Endless sponsorships. When I take a little bit of a look at the other types. So I think that's a pretty good place to start with video. If I come up with some more ideas, I'll think about it as I go. So let's look at traditional blogging. So traditional blogging, the pros of traditional blogging are it is super lightweight. Because similar to markdown files, they only, it's just small static data. So like using SSR type platforms, you can deliver a ton of information over just kilobytes of transmission. Type. Yeah, so you can just, with SSR type stuff, you can just deliver a ton of information for basically zero cost to the consumer's device, but also to your server. So literally zero cost in a lot of ways. Oh, another con of video is that you have to pretty much play on the big platforms. And the baggage that comes with that. Like the regular social media baggage. Fear of being kicked off. Algorithm destroying you, worth distilled into a number on a screen. Self-worth. Another great YouTube video that I saw on this was about 1 million subs, super eye patch wolf. Oh my god, that didn't work at all. How do I? Okay, I'm just going to take this link and I'm going to copy it, and then I am going to go back to Obsidian and paste. So yeah, I think that, that is a pretty big con of video, because you're either doing it on TikTok or Twitch or YouTube. There's not really independent video websites, right? Like people do have video on their website. Like you can do things like I mentioned in the first stream, Cloudflare streaming, for example, to host your own video. But it's just really not worth it at that point. At that point, it's like, why not just blog, right? Because in a lot of ways, SEO from Google or ranking on the page would entail that there's HTML for the spider to crawl over. And if there is no HTML to crawl over, because what you created was a video, it's not going to go through the video, transcribe it, and decide how worthy it is to kind of rank in the metric of kind of being existing on the page. So you would need some other kind of metric, and to create that other metric, you may as well post on like a YouTube or a TikTok where it's given in a recommendation feed. So let me sum that up. So let's say that like YT plus TikTok plus Twitch all run off of recommendation algorithms. Versus so a spider like Google will also, just not Google, just Google, but like or DuckDuckGo or Bing will not bother to transcribe your video, giving it an SEO of effectively 0. I think video does have the benefit of helping you work on public speaking skill set as well. A lot of this shows up in the edit. I think another reason, again, that I was interested in the live streaming version of things is that, as I said before, I hate takes. I hated when I would record video in the past, having a script and having to go through said script and going for like, let's say like 30 seconds and really nailing every single line, and then dropping the last line and being like, shit, I have to do this whole thing again. So that never feels good. With Twitch, the implication is that people aren't going to be perfect. The implication is that it's going to be rough around the edges, and that's cool because it gives a lot of flexibility to creators to not be their perfect self, to mumble and stutter and do all the traditional things that people do without having to like worry about it. So what do we have here? We have some pros of videos. I think, like I said, it probably pays the well at most, at least as a B2C model. Okay, so I'm going to close video again. Traditional blog, super lightweight, I think really easy SEO. Most of the internet still, to this day, even though we all spend all of our time on video websites, is made of text. I think about this a lot when you're in areas that have like pretty poor Wi-Fi. Having text on the internet is such a boon for those kind of situations, because you just don't have enough bandwidth to really reliably get gigabytes of data onto your device. So I think that, let me see, most data, so yeah, just does not work well if you are on a network that is throttled or can't deliver a ton of data. So yeah, super lightweight, really easy SEO. A traditional blog, I would argue, has less personality, unless it's a book. I think name recognition is pretty difficult due to lack of facial recognition. I think that this is like an effect that we see with video or excuse me, like bloggers who post like really interesting content, but then people will be like, wait, who posted that? Like, why is this quote in my head? I don't remember who said that. And this varies from person to person. I just think in general there's a lot less readers than watchers. So less readers out there compared to watchers. I think it's, you know, super lightweight, really easy SEO. It's way easier to make content. Because the only skill you really need to have is good writing. Only real skill that matters, EOD, is good, is clear writing. And I have been, you know, working on that skill for a while. I think that, you know, when I first started a blog back in like 2018, I knew that my writing was bad. And the great part about writing is that it feels like a skill that you can improve on your whole life. So you can start out by being a bad writer and move up the hill to being an okay writer, and then move up the hill to be a great writer, and really never fall back down the hill. I think it's really kind of hard to fall off, quote unquote, with writing, and you can do it your whole life. So I think it's a skill that only increases as you continue to do it, and you can do it your whole life. So traditional blog, I would say that like pays very little to zero unless you are willing to clog your site with ads. And I mean, duh, right? Like, this is just one of those things where, you know, you'll go to someone's website and you'll just see infinite ads just like barraging your frame of view. I think I saw like a, no, I don't know where to find that. But you know, like, you'll basically go to any cooking site ever if you don't have ad block or something enabled, and it will just be a bad experience. You'll just see a bunch of ads for like, just anything and everything under the sun, and it's not a fun experience. When you watch ads on YouTube, ads have changed on YouTube in the sense that, like, let's see, Lab Bible. Let's see here. Okay, take this. Video used to, people are okay with ads these days. So yeah, people are okay with ads these days. versed in 2007 when they said you were a sellout. Yeah, so but people still aren't okay with ads on blogs because, I mean, they just get shoved down your throat. I haven't found a clean way of doing this. There are some websites that, you know, like Substack, for example, has done a pretty good job. Substack has done a pretty good job of converting readers, I would argue. I think that a lot of people end up signing for newsletters on Substack for good reason. It's something that's very solid software. It just kind of works, and a lot of people really like it. You know, but the problem is that, you know, I guess you kind of have to set the bar of what makes something worth it from a financial versus a enjoyment versus a long-term sustainability kind of lens. So I think that the traditional blog is probably the longest sustaining because, again, it's just really easy to make content because all you have to do is do what I'm doing right now, which is words, and then turn them into sentences, and then maybe edit it once or twice. Compared to video, where at least the way that I've recorded video in the past, you have to come up with the script, get the B-roll, get the content, record the script, mess up the script, record the script, mess up the script, record the script, mess up the script, edit it 4 times by just going over it again and again and again and again, and then you upload it. After coming up with a thumbnail and title too, right? Which sometimes takes its own time. But, you know, again, like you make good videos and people are definitely going to come through, you know? It's also a very visual way of doing things. So Scrollytelling, I think, is like blogging, but with image transitions is basically, I think, the main pro. I think it also opens the door for it opens the door for like more data type visualizations, as we saw earlier. Let me close these. So actually, hold on. I think that there was like an AirPods one. AirPods Scrollytelling. Yeah. So I'm gonna show this real quick on stream. Yeah, I am. So this, for example, is like a video that they've made into a Scrollytelling experience. So it's pretty cool. You can like watch it like happen in front of you, which is pretty neat. And then you keep going, you scroll, and there's like you could see the guy's hair flip and stuff like that. That's pretty freaking cool. Keep scrolling. It like shows you how it was made, and yeah, I think that this is pretty cool. Like, you know, there's a lot of visual value to doing things in this kind of way versus doing them as like a regular video or even a regular blog where the images are stacked up against each other. But I think it also kind of weirdly works because of the shape of the AirPod and how literally by default it can't take up more than half the screen because it's got that super tiny stem. So if this is where it's thickest, so all they have to do is make it small enough that this part fits, and then they will never have to worry about the stick here. But yeah, so you can kind of just like continue to see how it keeps going, and you know, it's pretty cool. It's a very fun delivery. Uh, yeah, and then like you get stuff like this where, hold on, let me show this tweet. It's pretty funny. He says, "I feel like this should work well on my flagship Apple products, but it don't." Right? So you get like this, you know, people talking about how uh, the scroll-based animations don't work with like these GPUs and stuff like that. And this was a few years ago, right? So it might not just be worth it. You know, again, a big pro of video is that it's pre-compiled. So and I have like a pretty beefy computer that I was looking at this on. And I'm going to take the image transitions and put it here. But it can be, you know, like this Twitter post just said, really slow. Can fail across multiple devices. So I think that's just something that is worth keeping in mind with a scrollytelling experience, is that it's basically just like blogging, but you get the added benefit of doing image transitions. It opens the door for data visualizations, but it can fail across devices due to like weird CSS bugs. And GPU errors. Graph blogging, I don't even really know, man. I feel like the cons of graph blogging is that it scales very poorly because it requires the most active work from the end user. Funnily enough, I think graph blogging is actually one of the easiest to do, one of the easiest to create. Because it's akin to a collage. I would say that most likely would stay niche for pretty much ever. I don't really see a world where even though I spent a lot of time building graph blogging into my website, and I'm happy with what I was able to figure out, and there's still even more to discover. Like there's this this is definitely going to lag out. I can already tell. It's like lagging out without me doing anything. But yeah, you can see like you can like go into a web of ideas, and it's freaking cool. You know what I mean? Especially to see how things are like actually drawn out in space in terms of how close they are to each other. So I'm like not even at the tail end of my graph journey. Like I could continue to make some really crazy stuff with it. The problem is, you got to have like a computer like this to see this and interact with it and really enjoy the experience, I think, at all, which really is a bummer for a lot of people who don't have really good computers or laptops. And most of the internet, I think, is delivered through phones these days, right? Like, I know that I consume a lot of my content either through phones or highly optimized sites like YouTube. So it just doesn't seem that reasonable. Let's say that content these days is consumed mainly through mobile or highly optimized CDN sites like Netflix. Netflix has some crazy engineers. I think that on the topic of Netflix's crazy processing, I'm going to link in Netflix's tech blog here because I think their tech blog is crazy. Some days I'll like read it, and even as someone who studied computer science and does this stuff for a living, I'm just straight up confused. Hey, I ain't going cap about that. I think this one is like, yeah, the less personality, name recognition is harder. I don't know. I kind of feel guilty, I suppose. I guess it like sometimes when I'm writing, I just feel like well, yeah, there's also no big distribution website that is neither Hacker News, or excuse me, that is neither Twitter or like Medium, kind of. And yeah, and just in general, I just like think that less people bother to read, like the effort from Obsidian Streams is wasted. So I don't know. I think that I'm gonna continue to